1 degree. You know, when they tell us we are the problem causing global warming, no, science is what's causing global warming. And it's interesting how science has developed these energy devices, such as the HARP amplification unit, that can alter weather and cause, literally, they can cause earthquakes with these technologies. In fact, the earthquake in Haiti was caused, 3 naval ships were putting signals up into the stratosphere, and the energy would come back down amplified to the point, and it caused the earthquake in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. And people don't realize this, but we have technologies that are way beyond what they let us know about. In fact, I'll tell you more in just a sec, but so I was praying the entire time I was in Fairfield, and I was going hiking. I met fairies, I met Bigfoot. I mean, it was such a cool journey, but I never got an answer to my question. What do we do about all the chemicals, toxins, viruses, mutated fungus, parasites, and in addition to that, all of the dang radiation that we're all being exposed to as humans. And you know, we even had a radiation warning come out in St. George, Utah, because the air from Fukushima came right over St. George, and all the alarms went off. I don't know if you remember this, but it was in December 2000, I think it was 2013. No, well, it was around that time, because I was down in Phoenix, and I had people calling me from St. George saying, hey, the radiation alarms are going off. What's going on? And I said, well, Fukushima's cloud of radiation is right over St. George right now. So anyway, kind of interesting information. But, so I was on my way back home at the Silver Slipper there in Reno, Nevada, and I was praying. I was nervous. I couldn't sleep, and so I just kept praying. I fell asleep praying on the side, by the side of my bed. I'd always get on my knees, because it's a sign of your subjection to the divine. In other words, you're asking for their help and supplication, and when you're down on your knees connect to the ground. In this case, it was, you know, one of the floors in the hotel, but I figured I better just pray. So I prayed, and I woke up, and I was just had my head down on the bed, and my knees were on the floor, and I looked over, and the clock said 2:22, and so I got up, got into bed, and I had locked the door, and this light appears over at the door off to my right, because the bed was kind of facing the wall and the door was over here, and this light appeared over by the door, and I was like, what the heck? And it started opening up, and it became a light that was in a diamond shape with the top and the bottom, and this guy, it just keeps opening up, and this guy walks into the room, and he says, I'm Saint Germain, I've come to you with an answer to your question. And I was like, holy cow, I'm finally getting an answer. And the first thing he talked about was how the original humans had 24 strands of DNA, and they came from a planet called Maldek. And they disobeyed the laws of God, and the planet ended up blowing up and becoming the asteroid belt. But before it blew up, a lot of the humans left because they knew the planet was going to have problems, because they were using evil devices such like HARP technologies and different things, and they moved to Mars and to Earth. And some of these original humans were Adam, Eve, Lilith, and there was a lot of people came. The Bible only talks about Adam and Eve, but when they were forced out of Eden, because Maldek was known as Eden because it was a planet that grew lush vegetables and all the food that you needed naturally. And it didn't have weeds, it didn't have any problems, but the humans there became corrupted like we do, and started believing in other things, and creating weapons and all kinds of things of destruction. You know, humans don't learn, and the reason we don't learn is we don't know our real history. And Saint Germain talked about the real history of humans, and that we came from other planets such as the Pleiades, Orion, and all of these different places. In fact, Saint Germain said there's humans all over the universe. And so, and he said the original humans that came here had 24 strands of DNA, and they were perfected DNA, and that's why they live in this third dimensional body almost 1,000 years, 12 times as long as what we currently live. And because they had 12 times the DNA. And he went into other things that, you know, even to this day, I'm still having trouble understanding everything he told me that night. I swear it felt like he talked to me for about 24 hours, but it ended up only being 2 hours. And after he appeared to me, telling me about the 24-strand DNA and that I needed to write a book on it, Melchizedek appeared to me. And he went through all the sacred geometry of all the formation and creation of the universe. And I was like, holy crap, this is a lot of information. And he reiterated what Saint Germain had told me. And then, after he was done, it was about 2 more hours. So Saint Germain talked to me from 2:22 to 4:44. And then Melchizedek appeared, and he talked to me until 6 o'clock. And then Zapkiel, the angel, the archangel of creation and ecstasy, of compassion and ecstasy, and he's the one with the orange flame of creation. He appeared to me, and he reiterated everything and gave me more information about the angels. And so it was quite a thing. And I woke up that morning and I was totally inundated with so much information. Like, you know, we as humans, it's hard to extrapolate what happened to me. But when I got up, I told Vicky's sister and her twin, because they were there sleeping in the other bed. They didn't see anybody. Well, Angela woke up for a couple of seconds and saw something, but then it was like she had a sleeping spell cast on her. She went right back to sleep, and so she didn't remember anything except there was somebody I was talking to, which was quite interesting. And I told them both about what had happened to me, and neither one of them believed me. And so it was like, yeah, you know, that's life. So we drove home, and Saint Germain had told me, you've got to write a book about this. And so anyway, I didn't write it. This was in October of 2014. And anyway, I need to make sure I get the right time. But, oh yeah, it was good grief. Okay, yeah, 2014 is when he appeared to me in October. I did not write the book. I was too busy. I had to make money to keep my family going, and Saint Germain reappeared to me in December, so a couple months later, and he says, Scott, why aren't you writing the book? And I says, you know dang well why I'm not writing it. I have to work. I have to make money. I can't just stop and let my family starve. And he said to me, I will take care of you. Just be open to what you need to do. And I know that, he said to me, I know that you love Hawaii. You have creative juices when you go to Hawaii. And so I will find you a place where you can write, where it won't cost you any money. In fact, I'll help you get there. And so anyway, the next day, this lady I had done the intuitive reading on that lived in Maui, she calls me up and she says, Scott, I understand you need a place to write your book, and I've got an ohana I just built, and I'll get it all ready for you. You can stay there for free. I'll cook you lunch and dinner every day, and you can get your book written. And I was like, holy cow, St. Germain works pretty fast. And so I made arrangements to go to Hawaii, and I came to find when I went into my account with my Hawaiian miles, I found that there was 100,000 miles in there, and it was enough to fly first class to Maui and back home for $5. Back then they charged you $5 to use your miles, and so it cost me $10 to fly to Maui and back home. But anyway, I flew there, and I went up inside, and she had literally painted the walls violet. And, you know, because St. Germain is violet flame, and she put pictures of the ascended masters all over, and had the sheets on the bed were beautiful white with a purple cover. And anyway, I went to bed that first night and woke up at 6 in the morning, and I woke up and I looked around me, and there was this violet energy on these sheets, and they looked violet to me. And I got up and I heard St. Germain say, Scott, time to start writing. And so I sat down at the computer, booted up my computer, sat down and got WordPerfect or whatever program I had at the time, opened up, and he started dictating me what to write. In other words, he told me exactly what to write and what to put and everything, and so I started writing the first chapter, and he wanted me to tell the story of what brought us to this point, and it was really interesting because he said many things that were very important. And he said to me, you know, when you said to the people, I think we're going to have to evolve to get beyond this, he said, you had the answer, but not the method. And St. Germain continued stating, evolution is the answer, and it is inevitable for surviving this beautiful planet. Because he told me they were going to try and alter our DNA and make us into transhumanists. Transhumanism alters human. They've even got a name for it now. They call it, instead of Homosapiens, you know, and they've reiterated the sapien now, which I find fascinating, because they're saying you're the original humans, but now they call it Homo Borg. Now, what is the Borg? It's a Star Trek example of using technology in humans and making them half computers and half human. And so they've even called it after that name. And I was really surprised to find this, but you know, it's on the internet even. And so anyway, so to make a long story short, St. Germain dictated to me each chapter. He gave me the title of the chapter and everything about it, and he each day I would write, we would do you know, 2 hours, and then he'd say, Scott, time to eat breakfast. So at about 8:30 I'd eat breakfast until 9, and then he'd say, time to go back to work. And the gal downstairs, she would bring it up, so I didn't even have to cook it. And then at noon, he'd say, time to go play. And so I'd write about 4.5 hours each morning, and then I'd go play the rest of the day. And he introduced me to some really interesting people. The first one he introduced me to was Corey Goode. And I don't know if anybody knows about Corey Goode, but he's one of these 20 and back super secret space soldiers. And I met him back in 2014. And then he introduced me to James Gilliland, who has a ranch up by Mount Adams. And Mount Adams is a huge extinct volcano that has a hollowed out center. And there's a lot of spacecraft that come in, and you could use to Google map it. And there was a big square thing up on top down in the caldera of this Mount Adams. And it looked like a big square, and it was a big elevator. The spacecraft would land on it, and they'd take them down into the mountain. But anyway, I met James Gilliland, and the first time I met him, we went to Baby Beach, which I didn't even know about. But it's this beautiful little beach where they can take little children, and they can play in the ocean without worrying about them drowning, because it's protected by a big reef. And the water just kind of percolates over and then flows down a certain place back into the ocean. And it's the funnest beach, because it's like floating on one of those lazy rivers, and very cool. But anyway, and then in order for me to make money, when I got done with the book, he said to me, "Scott, you're all done." And I was like, "I am? Well, this is great, And he says, "I want you to go give a lecture over at the Temple of Peace." And I don't know how many of you have been to Maui, but there's this place over against the volcano at the very bottom, very close to where the highway is. And it's called the Temple of Peace. And St. Germain said, "You're going to give a lecture there. You're going to charge $20. I've got them all prepared," and they sold tickets for me. And it was really interesting, because 200 people showed up, paying $20 each. And so I made $4,000, which is the amount of money I would have made if I'd have stayed back here in Utah doing my thing. And so St. Germain even took care of me monetarily. It was pretty amazing. So, this is just some of the stuff about this book. And this book is actually very amazing. I go back and I read it, and it's got a lot of good information. It even talks about the AI, and how he even had Agenda 2045. He knew about Agenda 2030. He told me about all this stuff, and I look it up and find out even more information. And he told me about this guy by the name of Dmitry Ichkov, who is the best neural scientist in the world, integrating human energy into robots. And his desire was by 2045 to be able to download humans' souls and spirits into technology, and build robots out of nanotechnology that could take any form. And it's pretty tech stuff, and it sounds science fiction, but believe it or not, they've actually used time travel to even accelerate it even faster, and they want to have the project done by 2030 now, and reduce the population of the planet down to 500 million. And the Atlanta Guidestones talk about this. The Patriots went in and blew that place up, thank goodness. But it was literally giving us, the Satanists always tell us what they're going to do, and if we don't dispute it or fight it, then they get our implicit consent. Now, if you don't know what implicit means, it means your consent without actually giving your consent. You're actually consenting by being silent and not fighting against it. And that's the problem with humanity, is we have a lot of information, but we don't know what to do with it. And even though we're being extinguished as a species, because they want to have the 500 million humans who are left to be controlled by the AI, which means no freedoms, nothing. You just do what you're told, and if you don't, they can hit the kill switch and you'll die. And the nanotechnology that's building up in people's bodies was introduced through the vaccines and introduced with, you know, all kinds of stuff. Even our foods have nanotechnology in now, and so I was